Hello everyone, I hope you're having a very lovely day. Welcome to the special Q&A for Voyage Into the Night. I am joined today by two of our many cast and crew. First off, we have Freddie Williams. Would you like to say hi? Actor, producer, writer?
Yeah, hi, I'm Fred. Nice to be on it. Oh, I don't like this. Why do you have to introduce us?
Okay, fine.
Dirty hands.
We've got Fingal Dickens, who is one of the actors and also composer, a very important part of the process. And these two will be answering some of your many questions today. So we'll start off with one of the biggest questions that's been asked on Instagram, on YouTube, and across the board, which is, what are some of the biggest inspirations for the films? Directors, movies, books, etc. And we'll get to some of the performance inspirations and perhaps some of the music inspirations as well. But for me, we made a list very early on, excuse me, of some of the films that we wanted to look at from a filmmaking point of view. Those films include Drive, Only God Forgives, The Neon Demon, In the Mood for Love, Inception, Chungking Express, Fallen Angels, The Tree of Life, Knight of Cups, Badlands, Place Beyond the Pines, Hero, that's a big one, Pulp Fiction, that's a big one, Enemy, Fight Club, Seven, Blade Runner 2049, Nocturnal Animals, that's a big one, Shane, North by Northwest, that's a big one, and The Fall. As for inspirations in terms of performances and music, would you like to say anything about that?
Well, quite a lot of the films you just listed, the soundtracks definitely popped up in things that you recommended that I listened to in inspiration for a lot of them, especially Nocturnal Animals, because they have really great soaring strings and
that's right,
and great orchestrated moments, and people like Hans Zimmer obviously come into influence because they basically represent all that is of future film music, really. So obviously a lot of that came into play, but I'd say someone who Max Richter actually, for me personally, that big time, because I'm making everything in my room. So all I've really got is my piano and a violin. I don't have a cello or anything. So Max Richter was someone like a breath of fresh air, because there's a lot of string stuff there, especially violin. Also, one of our favourite composers that we looked at, which you haven't mentioned, is Ramin Djawadi, who's my favourite composer. And we looked at a lot of the Westworld music, and I think you adapted. There's a question later on about certain technicalities of music that I'm sure you'll elaborate on, but we looked at a lot of the techniques that he did with the Westworld score, the strings, but also the more electronic stuff. But we'll keep going with that. Williams, anything from a performance point of view that you want to talk about? Inspirations?
It's quite hard to say sort of inspirations for performances, because lots of the actors have never acted before. So I think their primary influence was themselves. They were just mainly being themselves, and I think the casting was sort of catered to more suit them. A particular character.
Although I will say, we didn't really look at that many influences in terms of taking from characters in films. But with you and Jasper, the Carrie James relationship, we obviously looked at a lot of different duos. Butch and Sundance, Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. In Seven, right? Mills and Somerset. We looked at Gosling and Russell Crowe in The Nice Guys, and even Rick and Cliff in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So it wasn't so much about specific performances, but more just the broad strokes of creating duos and stuff, because that was a big one for us. So moving on to the YouTube stuff. Oh, and before we go to the YouTube stuff, everyone, and I mean everyone, has asked two questions, which is what's in the box and what happens to the writer at the end. And I think we can officially say that there is a right answer to what's in the box. We won't reveal it, and and we'll never reveal it. But there is a right answer to what's in the box. As for what happens to the writer at the end, we don't know. I mean, I know what happens if he lives, and I know what happens if he dies, but I don't know. That for me, I love hearing theories about what happens at the end. We've got so many good theories
that you didn't even consider.
Yeah, there are so many good theories. And then when people say that actually makes sense, I never ever thought about that. I will share one theory, two theories which I really like, and I will neither confirm nor deny their legitimacy. But someone said that the opening scene when you see the writer, well, not the opening scene, but after the prologue when you see him, his hands touch the keyboard and he starts writing, that is actually the writer after he survived the entire ordeal, and then he comes back and then he writes about the entire thing. So he's not writing Voyage Into the Night there. He's actually writing, the more literal Voyage Into the Night. And then the other one was that when he takes the box, and then the Voyager character played by Money, she's seen in color, and that's actually her when she's actually a real person. And when he's at the beach and she's on the boat, she's actually on the boat to come and pick him up. That's another theory that I heard. But yeah, they're both very fun, and we've got loads more. And we love to hear what you think about theories down below as well in the comment section. Okay, first off, will this be getting any sort of DVD or Blu-ray release in the future? I would love to own it physically. We haven't thought about this.
So would I.
I would love to own it physically, but we have not thought about this. We could look into it, I guess. We could, down the line.
Maybe make a few. I don't think it should be mass-produced.
No.
Of course, I don't think we really want to do a half-ass sort of thing.
No.
Yeah, make it like a nice.
Yeah, something nice.
Okay.
Maybe put some posters in there as well.
We do have a few other posters that we haven't actually released. That sort of.
Perhaps we do.
Yeah, we have loads. We have got loads. We've got loads of concept ones.
I'd love to have some of them kind of.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll talk. We had, we might release this one day further down the line, but there's meant to be an entire sort of illustration, this huge banner where every character is on, and then it's like an Avengers poster, but it's sort of done in like an old school, like the Great Escape style, and it's hand painted and it's really cool. But maybe one day that will see the light of day. Anyway, this exact same person says, I have to say that you have some of the best titles for films I've ever seen. I love Voyage Into the Night as a title, and I'm sure it will make more sense once I've watched it. But I also love the title Cigarettes, Regrets, and Not So Empty Threats. Just a quick story about the title of Voyage Into the Night. It was meant as a working title. It was never meant as the final title. But I think we all just liked it a lot. And it got to the point where we were filming that scene where Harvey actually has to say Voyage Into the Night, and at that point you have to be decisive about what you're actually going to call the film, because the name of the book is the same name as the name of the film, so we had to be as decisive as possible, and just went with Voyage Into the Night. So, and we're pretty proud of that, right? What do you guys think of the title?
Well, I like how you could shorten it down to Voyage. I mean, that's kind of what, we just be like, we need to work on Voyage, it works.
Because we call it Voyage, we never actually call it Voyage Into the Night. Anyway, next question. The movie was great, thank you very much. How did you go about filming the long take sequence in the middle? How many takes, editing tricks, etc.? Also curious about Fingal's score and how long it took him to write. Thought it was one of the strongest aspects of the film. Fingal, do you want to go that first?
Well, thank you. It took quite a long time. Was it like 4 months, maybe?
I mean, when we started with some of the themes in like July. And the first piece which was completed was Money's piece when she walks down onto the beach.
Yeah.
And that only took 2 drafts. And we just used it.
Is if you listen, you can really hear like how the production was weaker at the beginning, like for me. And like, the first, like Harvey's first theme, the piano piece, like when I listened back to it, I'm like, the sound quality gets better as I progressed. And you can sort of work out which piece I did when. But no, I'd say, it was 4 months, kind of, but I'd say it was really like a month. It was. Serious, like, intense work. Yeah. Whether it was kind of just relaxed, like, we'll think about it a bit for the last year. It was.
Just to elaborate on that real quick, I think everyone needs to know how good of a job Fingal actually did, because a lot of it we left to last minute, which is so dumb, and it's something that we've already amended going forward. But yeah, he basically composed about an hour and a half worth of music in a month and a half, 2 months, and it was absolutely insane. We were calling every day, discussing it every day, and I'm just really proud of the turnout.
Probably actually, if you listen to all of the stuff we didn't use, it's probably like 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Really? There's 1 or 2 pieces that we cut out. Yeah.
There's a lot.
Also, just to answer the question about the long take sequence, that was the most difficult scene to film from a cinematography point of view. And it was the only scene in the entire film where we had to put up fake lights, A lot of the lights that you see in the exterior were not there. And I remember actually, there's one take, when Harvey's running up the steps and then he trips on the light and smashes it. And I remember my heart sank when that happened because we didn't think that we had extra lights. But luckily we did. That was filmed actually at Williams's house, and we rehearsed it quite a few times. The moment we got there after the train journey, we were running around the entire house doing multiple rehearsals. And as for edits, I think there are about 11 hidden cuts in that sequence, some of which are more obvious than others. And for me, it featured the most demanding cinematography, and it featured also, in my opinion, and I'm sure Williams will agree, the most demanding camera move in the entire film, which is when we pass it through the window. I'll play a clip now. And Williams, I was there. I had to adjust the focus because we were doing manual focus. Adjust the focus so that it would fit the distance. And then Williams was hidden, like crouched outside the shed, waiting to pick up the camera, and then he would go. And I thought that was a really fun, cool thing. And that for me is one of the scenes that I'm most proud of from a technical point of view. Anything on that, guys?
I really enjoyed shooting that scene. I thought it was really fun.
And we only did about 4 or 5 takes of everything, didn't we? We didn't do that many.
Yeah.
William?
No, but I think we were able to do that because we practiced beforehand.
Yes.
And there was less speed.
Whereas a lot of the film we didn't practice beforehand, and that's why there's about 13 takes.
Yes.
Just walking out.
We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so next person has 3 questions. Pamela, what were your influences for this film? We've touched on that quite a lot. Are there any films, filmmakers, or other things that you had in mind when making it? Or was there some of that was just there subconsciously? A lot of it was there subconsciously. But at the same time, we really looked at different influences. And we'll get to this when we talk about locations in just a second. But there were certain moments where, and I'm sure it always happens to people, when you do something and then you watch it back and you're like, oh, actually that kind of reminds me of, this scene, or I probably was subconsciously inspired. What was the most difficult scenes to make? Which was most difficult for the actors? Williams, you can take this one. And which was the hardest to film? Hardest film was the long take. But Williams, as an actor, what was the hardest scene?
The scenes we had to do at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then after having no sleep from the night before, because we also filmed at 3 o'clock in the morning. That was definitely the worst. I think there's a lot of sort of extra takes where you can tell everyone's had enough, and it was really quite taxing because it was, because there's no obligation really for us to be doing it. We all just do it because we want to, and then at those sorts of points you really start to think, oh, I don't know if I really want to keep doing this. That's the reality of it. And then the other times where it's hard is when you can't keep a straight face, just because you're filming with friends, and we've still got to have a good time and enjoy ourselves. So sometimes we do it a little bit too much.
God.
Isn't that more blooper reel than the rest?
Yes. The sort of the whittled down highlights is 2 hours and 50 minutes.
Oh my god.
And that's the highlights, by the way. That's the highlights. For me, the most difficult scenes to make, I would say that there are a number of different sort of styles of difficulty. Obviously, from a cinematography point of view, it's the long take. From a writing point of view, it's of course the big conversation between Carrie and the writer. From a performance point of view, but also just overall, I think the fight scenes are always difficult, but especially the fight scene between me, Jasper, and Jell. That took us 3.5 nights to film, and it was a lot of work, and it was really tiring. And we'll elaborate on that a little bit more in just a second. I would say, actually... Go on.
Sorry, yes.
No, I was just going to say that for me, as a human being, there's one scene that sticks out to me as the most difficult and the scariest in a way, which was the first scene we ever did with Fingal and Harvey in Bangkok. And it's the scene where they talk on the rooftop. And it was the first scene we ever shot, right, Fingal? And for me, the reason it was difficult, and there's a great story behind the scene, which I'll tell now, and I've never said this before publicly. That location is one of the ones that I'm most proud of, but it's also the scariest fucking location, because first off, we didn't intend on filming up there, but we went up there, and the elevator was broken, so we had to walk up the steps about 8 floors worth of stairs, and then you have to go on the fire exit, right? And this is Fingal's and Harvey's apartment in Bangkok, so they're familiar with this, and you have to go past the fire escape to get to the roof, and it's like The Hangover, where they have to get to the top of Caesar's Palace, and they have to put like a brick there, but in this case it was like a small rock, otherwise the door shuts on you, and then you get...
Wasn't it a slider?
I think it was either a shoe or a rock, and if the shoe were to slip, you would get stuck up there like Doug. And and then you climb up about 20 meters of ladder, and if you were to fall, you would probably either die or be paralyzed. And then you get on this platform, which is tiny, and half of it is taken up by like these satellite dishes and stuff, for TV. And so if you were to fall one way, you'd fall 20 meters down, and then you'd paralyze and break every bone in your body. Then if you fell the other way, you'd fall 20 floors down into the Bangkok pavement and die. And the wide shot that you see, that's as far back as you can go. And it was bloody windy, hence why you had to dub the audio. And I wasn't scared of falling. I wasn't scared that any of us were going to fall. What I was scared of was that, because we brought a lot of equipment up there, lens cap, bag, laptop, scripts. What I was scared was that one of those things was going to go, and I would instinctively try and save it, and then fall to my death as a result. And then the worst part was, I find out later, that Fingal and Harvey and the rest of the boys, they would go up there and get drunk on like a Saturday night.
Of course.
What the fuck? And the third question here is, are you happy with the locations you got? Are there any scenes you wanted to film in different ways but couldn't thanks to the locations? I think we all agree that we're very happy with the locations. I think that was one of the things we did quite a good job with, that we're really proud of. And I think we were able to get a good variety of them. Jasper and I, we talked very early on in the early stages, and it was something that we wanted to have to remain as a constant throughout, which was we at no point do we ever specify where the film takes place, what country. We really wanted to create a world of our own, and through the cinematography, the locations, we wanted it to feel like a film that could exist 20 years from now and 20 years ago. And so we looked at Seven, how they never specified, they filmed sort of different cities and then they kind of combined it into one. Of course, the most obvious example is Gotham City. Every director who's ever made Batman, they film Gotham City in multiple different locations and then they kind of jam it into one place. And that's something we wanted to do.
I know, what I noticed in a few moments when you were shooting in London, when you actually came to do the editing, I noticed that you actually mixed in some shots from Bangkok.
Yeah.
So it didn't confuse you. So it was just like...
Yeah, that was an intentional thing. For the London scene, some of the cutaways are shots of Bangkok. And for Bangkok, some of the cutaways are shots of the London scene. So we wanted to mix it up and make it feel like this heightened, surreal, dreamlike world. Like a comic book, like an illustration. And, we wanted it... I remember they said this when they made La La Land. And people have called out the Damien Chazelle influences already. But when they made La La Land, they said, they wanted to make the locations feel unreal, and they filmed for real, but they wanted people to feel like it was CGI and people to feel like it was green screen, even though it wasn't, and that was our intention too. And we've already got a lot of people saying, oh wow, it feels like VFX, it feels like green screen, but it's not. Everything you see is real. There's not a single shot of VFX in the film. I will say one thing about locations. There is one scene that I wish we could have done slightly differently, or a few scenes, but the scene where we meet my character Arthur and then we meet Carrie, if I had unlimited money, I would have loved to have had it take place in a really big casino, for whatever reason. I would love to have had the chase be in a casino and have them flip tables and throw chips, and then Carrie would then wipe the chips and then everyone would start chasing the chips as as a distraction or whatever. That was something I really wanted to do. Next question is, how did you manage to get the film on Amazon Prime? This obviously is something that happened much later down the line, but we always sort of had it in mind, because obviously Prime is very accessible. The process is simple but also very complicated. You basically have to make an account on Prime, what is it, Video Store or something, and you upload the film, you put the specifications of the film, the details, and it has to be, you send it in for approval, and I would imagine someone watches it and says, is this all right for Prime? And then you pick a date, but obviously I would definitely recommend you try and sort this out as early on as possible. Like the moment the film is done, get on it. That would be the one lesson we've learned. Isn't that right, Williams, as producers?
Yeah.
Alrighty then.
Because there was a panic few days trying to work out whether or not the film would actually release on the day we said it was going to.
Yeah, because Vimeo on demand is much.
Which would be nice if we could have avoided that.
Yes, we were very scared.
And I had no idea. You guys all panicked. I didn't know what was going on.
Oh yeah.
We were shitting ourselves.
I was scared.
And I hadn't done anything.
I'll just say that Vimeo on demand is really good in terms of specifics. You know, like they'll say, okay, what time? You know, Eastern time, GMT, like what time would you like the film coming out? And they would allow that. Like I think that's really nice. Anyway.
But we wanted Prime because we wanted for people just to be able to stream it
for free
instead of having to rent or buy it.
Exactly.
That was a big thing that we wanted.
Because for us, it's more about people watching it than actually making money. That's the thing.
Yeah. Because although the film has, handicaps, is it fair to say?
Yeah.
We still want people to, have a look at it and see that actually, we're kind of serious about what we're doing, and we want to show sort of initiative and hopefully a bit of talent, so that people will be intrigued to watch the next ones where we've learned everything from making Voyage, and hopefully it should be better.
The Will Holcroft is that you moment in the film put a big smile on my face. I'm assuming that was perhaps a nod to Tom Hardy's Eames at the start of the Mombasa chase in Inception. Yes, it is. Speaking of which, love the Nolan influences.
Was it not subtle enough?
Okay, speaking of which, love the Nolan influences, the non-linear narrative, the smart attire, and perhaps some of the sections of the score earlier on, which, like Goranson's in Tenet, had an inverted quality to it. Now I'll let Finkel elaborate on this in just a second. Also, intentional or not, the Thailand segments of the film, particularly the colours, reminded me a little of Chazelle's work in La La Land. Yeah, it was very intentional. I'd love to know if there are any other filmmakers that inspired you in making this, if any. I'll get onto that in just a second. Fingal, do you want to do the music first?
So you said it had an inverted quality, right? So, the hardest part of doing all of the music is just recording and, getting the bulk of the sound down of what you want. But then if you do want to make tracks more interesting, I just always used what I already had and just messed around with the audio, quite often switching it around, and it just creates a nice effect.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to quickly make something sound better without constantly having to re-record things, which is very tedious and tiring.
All right, well, in terms of that scene, it was very much inspired by the Mombasa chase. And in terms of the La La Land influences, the scene where the Voyager character walks down the steps onto the rock was very much inspired by the City of Stars scene in La La Land. And as for sort of the primary influences, and I haven't really talked about this much, I would actually say it's a lot of older films. And the film language of Voyage is very static and very patient, and there's very minimal handheld. Like, you can count the handheld shots probably on two hands. And for me, my philosophy was, I was asked the other day, did you use drones? Did you want to use any drone shots, stuff like that? I was asked the other day the question, and I basically said, my philosophy has always been that when we look at the older filmmakers, Hitchcock, Kurosawa, Billy Wilder, David Lean, whoever it is, they had basically half the equipment that we had. They just had cameras and a dolly and a tripod. And they didn't have handheld, they didn't have drones or steady cams or any of this stuff. And yet their films are so much more beautiful and so much more, amazing than a lot of the stuff we see today. So my philosophy was always like, if they're able to do it, with the minimal equipment and really use the film language to talk, to let that do the speaking, we can too. So that's why I think Voyage and people who always ask about our approach and our style, we have sort of a minimalist approach, because we believe that if you do the job right, you don't need fancy equipment, you don't need to have you don't need to be too flashy about it. So that's really the main influence for the film, and that's why I'm so glad that a lot of people have said it has an old school feel to it, because that was the intention.
If we had lots of kit, we'd lose a lot of the message that we're trying to convey with the film, and we want to keep it simple, because we're making a simple film that's enjoyable. That was the main thing. We wanted it to be enjoyable.
And also, we talked a lot about, like, there were so many moments when we were filming where instead of saying, oh, this is just like Parasite, or this is just like Joker, we would be like, this is just like North by Northwest, this is just like Sunset Boulevard, and then we would get the references, and James Stewart, Cary Grant, I've always felt like those films have a charm that is lost on a lot of modern day films. Anyway, at what point did you decide to change the gender of the characters? Oh no! And why that decision? Did it impact the plot or the original intention of the characters? Well done, by the way. Thank you so much. This is a big story. We decided, I think probably around June, towards the end of June, that the Voyager character needed to be a girl, a woman, because for a number of reasons. I think that the gender of the character was never actually important, but what was important was that the character stood out. We needed that character from the very beginning to, in a way, transcend the other stories and feel like she, was not necessarily better, but existed in a different kind of world. And at any point, if anyone were to ever say, oh, this feels like it's from a different film, it needed to be her scenes. And so they needed to be different, regardless of gender. And so we thought, oh, well, the rest of, it's an all-male cast. It would be really cool to have this one character who needs to stand out be a woman. And also, our film, this is not 12 Angry Men, this is not Reservoir Dogs, where we make a point of it being an all-male cast. Our film takes place in a somewhat realistic depiction of the world. Where are all the women? What makes your film better, different, unique, or great than any other film out there? Do you want to take this one?
The thing I will say about our film is that there are problems with it, big issues, and that really set us back. Obviously, the sound is the main thing, and some of the dialogue as well, because most of the dialogue was us improvising it, to be honest with you. We had a script, but most of the time we didn't stick to that script. Because most people can't learn lines.
No, they can't.
It was all just made up. It was all made up. We all just, did what because we just kind of did what, we thought the characters would do, which was good, and it created a lot more, it created new dialogue that was more realistic, and because realistically, Pamela can't write dialogue. Right?
No, he cannot. We'll get to that too in a second.
I think the thing that is a big positive about it was the amount that we learned and across the film, and I think you can see that from the early footage to the end. The stuff in Scotland was just sort of us, pretty confident in what we're doing, and if we had more time, there's lots more things that we would like to go back and change and make things better, but we unfortunately can't do that, so we're just going to put it all into the next one.
I was just going to say that when our film's not better than anyone. Our film's not greater than anyone. No. It's just the film. Obviously, it means a lot to us, but it's not our place to say if it's better. When it comes to being unique or different, what makes our film unique or different from any other film is the fact that it was this group of people who made it. And the one thing I'll say is everyone left their mark. Everyone came on who worked on the film, left an impression. And if you were to take them out and replace them with someone else, it would be a different film. You know, some more than others, obviously, but I would say that, you know, the thing that I'm most proud of is the team. And the fact that everyone came together and you know, from unique backgrounds and with unique different experiences, and they came together and they made a film. And, you know, if you were to take Fingal out, it would be different. You know, if it was a different composer, if it was a different person playing Carrie, it would be a completely different dynamic and a different energy. You know, and so what makes it unique? What makes the film unique? What makes the film different from everyone else is the fact that it was this group of people. We're not saying it makes it better. We're not saying it makes it worse. But that's what makes it different, and that's what makes it Voyage, you know. Next question. It's clear that you enjoy writing the films you make. I don't. Would you consider accepting scripts or working with other writers to produce screenplays? I mean, that's sort of a two-part question. Look, I don't actually love the writing stage of the film. Actually, if anything, that's my least favorite part. I love coming up with the plot and, you know, joining the dots and the broad strokes of it and the characters and who they are and what happens in the film, but I find it immensely difficult to get into the dense details. That for me is the difficult bit, and as I've said to Jasper many a time, I write so that I can direct, not because it brings me joy. Because there are directors like Quentin Tarantino who literally write it with a pen on a notebook, and you can read it like a novel, right? Like, you can read Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and it will be a really fun book. Or you can read The Hateful Eight. You can't read my script. It's nonsense. It's just a bunch of, because I'm one of those people who has certain scenes edited out and shot and reshot and re-edited before I write. You know, the opening scene was in my head down to the millisecond, 6 months before I even started thinking about writing a script. And so when I write, you have all of this technical stuff, like the camera's here, this person stands here, you know, and I write with edits in mind, down to the word. So you will never enjoy reading my scripts, and I don't particularly enjoy doing it either. As for the second part of the question, we can't really say much about future projects and what we've done, but the short answer is yes. We have worked with other, you know, I'm more than happy to work with other scripts now, because we've made a film and we're a little bit more confident. You know, this time last year we probably say, no way in hell can we work with an exterior script, but now we can. And I think we're at that point where we can sort of branch out. And so the answer is yes, all the way. Okay. Next question is, did you plan the noises of the cars and the trains? Yes, we did. That you know, despite the piece of shit sound mix, those bits were intentional. That said, there's one scene where Williams and I are talking, and then there's a police car that comes from behind, and that was a real police car, and it made me jump. That's why it's a split-second cut to a different angle, and so we had to bridge that gap. Bro, that actually made me jump. Next question is, I kind of understood it, but what was the point of the nameless woman? This is the Voyager. The point of that character, well, you know, that there is a part of that character that is supposed to be ambiguous, that is supposed to provide a more poetic, lyrical feel to the film. You know, as we've said so much, I think Voyage is a very literal film. And it's quite in your face sometimes, and we wanted that character to feel, to bring a certain level of ambiguity and metaphoricalness to the film. And she was also supposed to represent the idyllic nature of these characters, where they want to be. Right? This surreal, better, larger-than-life, superior world that a lot of the characters aspire to get to.
When you say the simplest answer is, I mean, the way you directed, the way it was shot, it was trying to ensue that what Harvey was writing was in some way linked to money.
Yes. You know? Like, that's why she's called the Voyager, you know? She's in Voyage Into the Night.
I think whoever asked, I think somebody who asked this question might not have got that. But you know, it's totally possible. Okay,
yeah, so the simple version is that character is a character within the novel that is called Voyage Into the Night. Next question is, what is the budget of the film? We didn't really have a budget, but I worked off of the logic that we filmed for about 23 days. And I worked off the logic that we spent on average £200 a day, I believe. Because some days we would just have Domino's and a beer and we would just go to sleep. Other days, we would have to pay for the fuel to drive up to Scotland and pay for a hotel that we booked, and flights and transportation. That was mainly it, really. So I would say it was around £4,800, something like that, which is not that much for this film. And one of the compliments that I've gotten is that it looks so much more expensive than it actually is, and I'm curious what you guys think of that.
Yeah, I think we had nothing pretty much. So most of it was all of it was basically coming out of our pocket. Didn't do any fundraising or anything like that. We used our own clothes, we used our own locations, we used our own houses, living spaces. We drove ourselves up to Scotland. We got on the train to Wales, and we just did stuff out of our own pocket.
Next question. What are your future plans in terms of university, film school, etc.? I'll extend these questions to you too. I'm at film school right now, and it's all right. I'm pretty happy. I like the people. That's my favourite part of it. And we're doing all right.
Well, I'm out of school. No. I'm at university, and so the acting is just something we do in our free time, most of us.
Fingal?
I'm studying music, so keep your eye out. Some more stuff.
Shameless plug.
Go follow. No. Now is the opportunity. Go follow at Fingal Dickens Music or whatever. Fingal Licking Content, whatever it is.
No, you know what? I actually haven't released anything worth following. Yeah. So just when I say keep your eye out, I literally mean keep your eye out for when it.
No. But we do have to say this though. Fingal and I are working on releasing the soundtrack on YouTube for free, yes. Right? Free of charge. So we're going to work on that, and eventually it'll be up on his YouTube channel. No question. Yeah. All right, it's going to come out.
YouTube converter.
It's going to come out. So next question is, what was the most stressful, angriest day for all of you during production? I know which was the weirdest day for me. I have two. What about you guys? I think I know what Fingal's was.
You go first, but we know what you're about to say.
Okay, so obviously the last day is always quite a sad day. So I don't think the last day counts. Also, it just so happened that we filmed the final scene on the last day. The ending was filmed on the last day. So we were all quite sad, but also really happy. It was a mix of emotions, so I don't think that counts. The day where Fingal and Harvey and I filmed at the factory, we worked for 14 plus hours. Remember that? And halfway through, we were out in the desert, and the camera smashed. It fell to the ground, and the lens cracked. And so we had to drive back. Somehow, some miracle, we managed to fix the lens, but it was loose, so I had to hold the lens together. We reshot that desert scene. That's why the quality is a bit off. And we had to drop most of the cool shots that we wanted to do because we couldn't do them anymore because I had to hold on to the lens. And a few hours after that, when we shot the heist sequence, the big factory heist, the vertical axis of the tripod came loose. And so what happened at the end of the night was I had one hand holding a duct-taped tripod and the other hand holding the lens together. And aside from the fact that it was really stressful, but these two, Fingal and Harvey, were so good and so up for everything. That was the thing that kept me going. But that was really stressful. And it was stressful, obviously. However, the other day for me that was really weird, and to this day I've never been able to put a finger on it, on why that was that for me, was the second day of the reshoots in London, where we filmed, it was me, it was Jasper, it was Williams, and it was Jell, and we were filming a lot of the conversation scenes in the hallway, and then we filmed the fight scene, alright, Jasper and Jell's portion of the fight scene. And I was so tired, and I was so, drained. And usually, out of everyone, Williams and Jasper and I, we mess around the most. We fool around the most, and we have a laugh the most out of everyone. But that day, for whatever reason, I just wasn't having any of it, and I was uncharacteristically quiet. And the two guys noticed that I was uncharacteristically quiet. They asked me what was wrong, and I had no idea. And it got to a point where I was so on low battery that Williams knew when he had to step in and do the fight choreography instead of me. And he basically directed that fight scene. or a portion of it, and I just had to hold the camera because I was just dead. And to this day, I still don't know why. But yeah, those were the 2 weird days for me. What for you? What was it?
Any number of the times we just got plastered and did the scenes. That was always fun. Yeah, just like the late night stuff was always really difficult because I know Jell and I were both at college in London, so we were working during the day, and we would work. We'd do college, and then I would get on the train home, get changed, then get the train down get the tube down to Panoise, film there. Then we'd finish at some godforsaken hour in the morning. I'd have to get an Uber back, shower, and then I'd go straight. Yeah,
I'm just going to say one thing about this. That because Williams is too humble to say this. Williams, you're too humble to say this, so I'll say this. Williams, Jasper, Jell, and Elwood and I mean the whole cast, but really a lot of the London lads and the Bangkok boys, but a lot of the London lads are on a different level of commitment and care. They are coming in on the train hours away. Jasper doesn't live in London and he comes for the weekend. Williams and Jell are at college. They're filming nights. They have to go from college, go back, get changed, come to my house, go back to their house, wake up, get changed, have dinner, have breakfast, and then go to school. Who does that? You know, it's people who genuinely give a shit. And that's why it really annoys me when people do not, you know, people on the same team are lacking. Because these guys should give the rest of the team no excuses whatsoever. And they set the standard. And it's a bloody high standard, but it's bloody good for me. And I'm beyond grateful, and I say it to them every time. And that's why it really annoys me when some people give them shit for not committing or not holding their end of the deal, because they do it and then some, you know? So I just wanted everyone to know how committed pretty much everyone on the film is. Late nights, early mornings, you know, sometimes filmmaking can be glamorized as this cool thing. It's not. It's a lot of hard work, and these guys know it. And I know that these guys worked bloody fucking hard. And that's why I will go to hell and back for them.
The thing I learned a while, because before it I was like, oh yeah, I'm so excited to do the filming and all that. Then we filmed, and quite a lot of the time it's pretty miserable.
Yeah.
It's because you just have to do the same thing again and again and again until you get it right.
Yeah.
And then you move on. And only is it enjoyable and rewarding when you actually watch it back, partially edited, or in any stage of the editing process, and you look and go, actually, yeah, this is good. That's when you start to really appreciate it. I
mean, mate, I've said this a million times, and I'll keep saying it, and I know you guys agree with me. Filmmaking, in many ways, as I've said, it is like being in a relationship. Because you're asking people, working with people on a film is like, you know, it's scarier than asking someone to go out with you, because you're literally, it's like a marriage proposal. You're asking, could you come on this adventure with me? And it's going to be nightmare most of the time, and we're going to argue and we're going to fight and we're going to want to kill each other by the end. But hopefully if we do it right, it's going to be bloody destructive, but it's also going to be really rewarding. And I've always said that filmmaking, it's like you get 100 days and 90 of those days are hell, and you get the 10 best days of your life. And if you know that it's going to be worth it, if you're going to go through hell for 90 days and those 10 days are worth it, then you know that filmmaking is for you. But if for you think, actually I'd rather just, you know, do something else, then don't do it. Because it's a lot of pain for a little bit of pleasure. But if for you that pleasure is worth it, then it is for me, you know.
Okay, apart from the long day in Bangkok, which wasn't bad for me, I mean, it was stress.
You were so well fed, though. You were so well fed.
And you know what? This boy, to be stressed. The way to my heart is through food, and it's true.
Mate, 7-Eleven sausages and fucking sausage rolls. My God. If you live in Thailand, you know exactly what's up.
I've never eaten so much in my life, but I was very content there. My worst moment, which was quite funny, but it was the first time I'd actually filmed with you guys, because I never actually filmed with Fred, like in a scene together, but I went to your flat in London and shot with Elwood. and that morning, I was meant to be going to visit my cousin because I hadn't seen him for like a year or 2 years even. And I was waiting, and I was like, oh my god, it's getting closer to the time for me to leave, and we just couldn't do the lines. And I can't remember if it was my fault. It was a mixture of mine and Elwood's fault. But oh my.
No, it was Elwood. Elwood. It was Elwood. It was Elwood. It was like the room. It was like room or whatever, where they couldn't get the bloody lines right.
But when we finished it, it was. I was so relieved. And it was hilarious. It was a funny moment.
It's one of the best bloopers, and it's one of the most satisfying moments because Elwood finally got his line right, and the entire room erupted in celebration.
Although we both know that ain't gonna happen.
I did it! Yes! Oh my god! The question is, what camera did you use? I used this trusty Lumix G85, I believe. We switched lens halfway through. I have this really lovely Leica lens, which I'm really happy with. But and then we had a tripod and these two hands and a DJI Ronin gimbal thing. Just wanted to let you know, I'm so happy for you, man. My absolute dream is to work in film. It brings me so much joy to see someone like me making such strides towards their goals. A million times I thought it was a question. Oh, it's just a really nice anecdote. Thank you so much, Josh Baker. That's right. Oh, wow. I haven't read this bit. Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Nice. Thank you. Next question. Last question. Just saw the film. It was incredibly impressive, artful, and honestly inspiring to someone like me who is an aspiring filmmaker. Thank you so much. I believe Williams and Fingal are also very grateful. There's an endless amount of gorgeous settings in the film. Thank you so much as well. And I was wondering, how did you find those places? How did the location scouting process take? How long did it take? Anyways, keep up the great work and congrats. You guys made something really special and cool. Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Location. Williams? Thing?
Well, locations are just places that we know. So the stuff in Scotland, Jasper knows very well, and Harvey, they both spend a lot of time up there. London, you live there, you have a flat there. I was living there for a year, so we were using those places. Wales, that's where I'm from.
That's your territory?
Faultless. I am actually from Wales, you probably couldn't tell. Thailand stuff in Bangkok and Phuket, that's your neck of the woods. So, we just use places that we know.
Yeah.
And there was the Scotland scene where Carrie and James pull over on the side of the road. We filmed that because we were driving up and we thought, bloody hell, this looks nice, doesn't it? And we just pulled over and did the filming.
Brilliant.
So, it's that sort of thing. We had a general idea, and there are obviously certain locations that we had nailed down and we wanted to do. But the rest of it, we were just, making do with what we had and what looked good at whatever point.
I also have to say, it's a lot of the location that we went to, I had never seen. There was never like a scouting process. I just trusted that they would be cool. And what's fun about that as well is, you write certain movements and compositions into the script. I don't storyboard because I can't draw. And we all know that. But you write certain bits into the script. But it's also so much fun sometimes where you get on set, on the location, which you've never been to before, and you just have to try and make it look cinematic. And you try your best to sort of, look for the compositions which are cool, look for the angles and the crevices within the trees or the beaches or whatever, and the rocks, whatnot. And you try to make the most out of that. And there's a certain kind of fun of, with improvising and thinking on your feet like that. So that's locations. But yeah, I doubt this will be the last video about Voyage. Well, it might be fun to just do like an entire timeline of everything we did and stuff, or break down a few scenes, what we liked and what we hated, because there are a lot of bad stuff. But we would, I think we're all very grateful for the response, negative and positive, and I think it would be nice to sort of leave the audience with where we're going forward.
Well, I think in a way we're kind of developing our own sort of production team, so we're going to be going down lots of different routes. Films, short films, music, just basically any part of the arts.
Fingal?
Yeah, I mean, I never really thought that I'd end up doing film music. I mean, it's always been a niggle in my mind. But then when even though we went to school together, Pamela, it was lucky that we actually properly became friends.
Yeah.
And and it just sort of worked out so nicely, and I'm it's sort of fun. I had a really good time, and obviously I'd like to do other stuff with music. I'll not always carry on doing whatever, but I'm always going to stick with this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to run away from it.
No, that's absolutely brilliant.
The one thing that I think we're trying to do is we're trying to bring like-minded people together to create something. Actually, that's our next sort of big step.
Yeah.
To bring people who want to try something and put them in touch with other people like them. We're not trying to, there's no sort of like budget or anything like that. It's just someone, I want to make a film. Do you know anyone who would be willing to come out me for
and are enthusiastic and they care about exactly. I think in a way we've talked about this before, but I think with Voyage we were sort of, because we started off Voyage with we were nobodies, like we didn't know anyone, and I think with Voyage we kind of no, we still don't. We're still losers. But no, I think with Voyage we tried to sort of build up this community, right? Like this group. And now that Voyage is out and everyone's seen it and all that kind of stuff, it sort of feels like we're now opening the door for whoever wants to come in and and work with us. And it's not like, to be honest, like it's not really about how good you are at your job or anything. It's about do we get along? How passionate are you? How much do you care about this? Because we care, right? We give a shit. And in regards to future projects and stuff, we're working currently. We'll sort of announce it more officially later down the line, but we're currently working on an anthology series of short films, right? 7 or 8 films with all sorts of different writers, directors, actors coming together. And we're also working on a next feature film, which is currently in the script stages. And of course, it kind of goes without saying, but if any of you are interested in potentially collaborating with us on a project, whether it be as an actor or someone behind the camera or anything really, you can text us on the Voyage Into the Night Instagram, or you can just leave a comment down below with your contacts or whatever, and we'd love to have you. We look forward to sort of potentially working with new people, right? So with that said, thank you very much once again for sticking and coming to the very end of the Q&A. It's probably been way too long, and I'll try and edit down some of this. We're very grateful for the response of Voyage. Do let us know, any other questions, and we'll try and answer them. If you have any queries, not necessarily about Voyage, but just anything, we'll do our best to get back to you. We're incredibly grateful for the support, for the love, and for the criticisms, and hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching the video.